So as we're talking about things that they can have to chew or not to chew, that's going to be really important on how you set up your house environment. So you want to get on your own hands and knees just like you would with a toddler. Is there cords available? Is there things that are on the floor such as kids' Barbie dolls, socks? When we make a toy box, you don't want anything in that toy box like old socks tied in a knot. They're not going to know the difference between an old sock and a new sock. Old shoes, they don't go in that box. It has to be things that are truly toy related. All dogs love toy boxes. They came into my daycare, I didn't care what age. They would walk over to that toy box and start rooting. They like to root, meaning they like to get in there and start searching. Now again, certain breeds, certain toys. If I have a terrier, they're a hunter. They like to go out there and, first of all, like I was talking about how toys are, this has a squeaker in it, right? This probably wouldn't be the toy that I would put in the toy box for a terrier, because they're gonna wanna not only get to this toy, they're gonna wanna de-gut it and get to that squeaker, because that's just DNA, that's just in them. That would be like a Jack Russell, a Chihuahua even possibly. You want, again, to know your breed and then start picking. I also recommend in your toy box what I call the Galileo bone. It's not what I call it, but it's a purchase, one that you can go and look for. It's one of the best nylon bones out there because of the way it is designed. And again, all toys, all bones are not made equal. So bully stick is another great one. It's a pre-digested type of bone. Well, it's not really a bone. It comes from the male cow, so basically it's what's on the cow that's not on a female, and they create that into a very healthy chew items. How many hours do you think a dog needs to chew a day? It's minimum 3. That's actually how they keep their oral care. That's how they get rid of some of that pent-up energy. It's all something that they have to be able to have. And that's not like greenies, the little things that are good for the health, fresh breath and good teeth cleaning. This is actually for the need that they have to chew. You think about what dogs would eat in the wild. They'd eat chickens, they'd eat the bones, which cleans the teeth. They'll eat herbs and grass. They'll eat tree branches. They'll do all kinds of things to keep their mouth in a healthy state. So, you have to put that into their lifestyle as much as while you're trying to think of things that can exhaust the dog. So again, when you have a toy box, and I highly recommend that, you have it and you put in, I usually say parents go buy 20 different items, but only put 8 and then rotate. It's kind of like a kid. They really do get into the fact that there's different things in there. And if you have a few training items such as balls that they love, don't put that in there. That comes out only during your training time. So again, when you're picking what treats you're going to use and what rewards you're going to use, you want those things to be really special. They only come out during training and during the reward aspect of it. Now, again, we just went over the diet and what foods and what treats to use and not use. So again, I just want to make sure you understand, I would not give them any treats that, again, you can't pronounce the ingredients. A lot of those treats, if they're cheap, they're cheap. You want to go healthy, you want to go quality, and you'll have a happier dog. Okay, and you also have better breath. Actually, the healthier they eat, the healthier they smell. So we're gonna go from that to, I was just talking about looking and setting up your house, to having a crate. And the reason we talk about having a crate or a playpen for a dog is in a pack, they would actually be in a den environment, meaning that they go into a den together. They don't have to worry about what's behind them because it's usually a wall, a cave. And then they would have just the front to worry about. So that's why a crate or somewhere where it's confined is a calming effect immediately. For potty training, it's the same rules apply. But when you pick a crate or you pick an area, especially if I'm potty training, I'm not gonna give them such a huge space. I'm gonna give them a place to stand up, lay down, turn around. It can't be what they're gonna grow up to. So if I have a Great Dane and I put them in a Great Dane crate, that's huge. I need to, and they're just a puppy. I wanna start out and keep that kennel, which they come with dividers, to the size of the dog. And this also helps with the calming effect, okay? But you would only put, if you want to put something in there for chewing, again, you'd go back to some of the Kong things that I was talking about. You can freeze them. You then can put 2 items maybe inside the cage. Now then, that being said, dogs can't sit in there 8 to 10 hours a day. You have to have another plan. You have to have where somebody's coming home, they're getting out. That would be really hard. And again, your exercise should be a part of that daily plan. So it's not like I'd go out leash walking for my exercise with my cell phone and my coffee in my hand and hope that's a good exercise for the dog. They need to come home with their tongue hanging out. They're tired. You're tired. So the other thing I want to talk about is equipment, and you'll see there's a whole list that you can look at in the book, but I really want to talk about the leash because what I see is what we call the retractables. I don't have one on me, but I would literally tell you put that far away where you don't see it for a long time, or just give it away up to somebody. The retractables is a great leash idea in one level where it comes out and it locks into position. But I've also seen where that retractable breaks and they go, you know, I've watched a Jack Russell break it right out of the case as they were ready to dart after something. So it's just not safe, but it's also not good as a trainer. You can't hold that in your hand and train your dog and treat. So I want you to get and have a 6-foot leash. Now my rule with this, again, I've watched parents come in with the backyard chain that they've tied the dog down with, or nylon, other kind of fake leashes that they created. Well, the leash is for safety for you and your dog. So it has to be a nice made leash. One with a handle, one that is actually strong, no rips in there, ready to fall apart, and one with a good clip, one that you can clip very easily. The other part to this is one that will fit in your hand. So it's gonna fit right into your palm. Not be so thick that you can't even close your hand, because you need to close that hand when we get into leash training work. So for the 6-foot, the other thing I would like to state on this one is your bags for cleanup for your dog, do not put those on the handles. That again gets into the way for dog training, and it makes it unsafe for you, it makes it unsafe for them. And while we're talking about the things, if you were in my class in front of me, I would already be saying, I would prefer you not to come to class, or well, flip-flops aren't allowed, period. It's not that I wouldn't prefer you. So you don't want to go out and train in a shoe that you might fall over and injure yourself, right? You've got to be in tennis shoes, safe, good shoes. If you're inside, you still want to at least be in attire that is safe when you're doing some of the exercises we're going to be doing. And that just means, you know, not slippery socks where you're sliding around on the floor. I just want you to think about what could happen so you can prevent it by wearing what's safe. And since I can't see you, I have to know that you're just, I'm having you follow through with me on this. So you're going to want to get a 6-foot leash, then you're going to want to get a long line, and a long line goes from 15 feet to 30 feet. What is a long line? It's how we get our dog off leash trained eventually. Now when I train always with the intention that I want you and your dog to where you could eventually just say their commands and they're right there for you. You don't have to worry whether the leash isn't doing the work. You and your dog have a relationship and the dog is listening to you because you've taught them these commands. So, which is the command list that I'm gonna have us start out with, right? Because from this point on, I'll go through everything. How to teach a dog to not bolt through the front door. How to teach a dog to lay in one place while you have visitors. We're gonna hit everything you could possibly think of, along with how to get a dog to walk at your side, how to get a dog to come from a distance. So let's go back to timing on this. So we're talking about training equipment and timing. So I'm gonna put a couple of these things and mix it up. When I talk about timing, everything that you want and want to reward with that marker word, and we just talked about doing it at the perfect time, you wanna make sure that if you yourself don't know what you want in the end result and you're hoping the dog can show you, please make sure you back up to this and go back to your command list and back to what you guys have. And you're just gonna break up each session into a small session. I talk about staging in our homework. And staging is that there is no training that's just off, whenever we just happen to do it. And, we set everything up. We get our leash, we get our collar. We know that we're going to have the humans know the right way to interact with my dog and the wrong way so that they know what to do. Body language. We want to set this dog up for success so that training goes quick and fast. And that's why this part is so important. Again, this is the most important class out of all of them if you want a good and well-trained dog. Okay, so I'm gonna go into equipment really quick again. And what we call this is called the mother's prong. Originally, that's what it was called, and not a pinch collar, but it's known as that. And the reason they call it a pinch collar is you actually have to pinch these together to pull them apart. But now they've also created ones where you can just do it as a collar, flip it open, and put the dog's head in. So some people look at this and think, my gosh, this is barbaric. I would never want to put this on my dog. But if you look at what a choker does versus a mother's mouth, and I'm not saying pick one or the other, I'm going to give you the information and you choose. But when they came out with chokers, it's all about how you put it on. So you can actually put a choker on backwards and it chokes. And you see how there's no release. That's horrible. That's right here. That's where you're choking them. That doesn't happen in a dog's world. They don't even understand that. So you could actually make this muscle thick and tight, and you can make them get to where they don't even want to listen to you. So I don't personally use these. I've only used these when I deal with really aggressive dogs and my own face and life could be in trouble. So yeah, I have to have some tools to go to. I train big dogs or other dogs in different kinds of training tools altogether. I use many different things. The other collar that's available is called a martingale. So it has the regular collar and the chain at the top. The main secret is these collars, all of them, have to fit right behind the ears, not down here on the collarbone. It has to be perfectly where you put it on and it's pretty much right behind the ears, high up. Anything you're using if it's on the neck. Now, if you choose just to train with a collar, usually that's going to be really difficult when it comes out to leash walking and whatnot. Inside the house, it's pretty good. And I recommend all dog collars to have a snap release. And the next item, a lot of times people would like to use is what we call a harness. This is just one of many kind of harnesses. The problem with a harness is we use them to actually teach a dog to pull a cart. So they work with the brain's automatic response to pull. Anything that pushes on us, usually we push back. So that's why I don't recommend these until your dog is completely trained. Then you can use a harness and you'll love them. The next item you're gonna need is that treat pouch. And it should be quickly, easy to get into and out. And then something that can go on your hips. This is gonna be really important as you get into further with the training for off leash. You wanna be really quick. Or have your treats in a bowl inside where you can walk right over and get them. Because the actual part of training that's so important when we're training with treats is we've conditioned them to understand the marker word. And in this first exercise, all I'm gonna have you do is have your dog on a collar, on a leash, start out with the treat, and we're gonna say their name and good and give a treat. We're building up the marker word, which is good. So we're building that word up and giving them the treat. That's all you're doing this week with that. You're also saying their name and giving a treat. Say their name and giving them a treat. Just imagine how do we get people to stay in Vegas on machines and keep putting in the money? That's a behavior that they've learned to get what in the end? A reward. So when we train with treats and we train with rewards and toys, those are all reward items. And we're marking it with a marker word such as good, and then the reward follows. So the dog works really hard to get that marker word to get that reward, okay? And usually if it's a really great behavior and they're really catching on, we'll do what we call jackpot, which is similar to the Las Vegas lottery machines. Now, how do we condition a behavior is really important. You have to first look at your dog's personality and make sure that you get to know, just like humans, we have all different kind of personality types. So one of the behavior examples I give is we were taught to go to a pop machine, and I'm from Ohio, so I say pop. Some people say soda. But to go to the machine, a behavior is to put the money in, hit the button, and select your pop. Now, what happens when that pop doesn't come out? We get frustrated, and some of us will hit the button more, so the behavior starts to repeat and repeat and repeat. And then if no pop comes out, our behavior of hitting the button either goes to, okay, well, that didn't work, but I know that normally I get a reward, so I'm going to shake the machine. Now, that's a personality type. I probably wouldn't do that. I would probably walk away. But I've watched other personalities who have a high tolerance are going to make sure they get that reward. So what I want you to understand with that is dogs aren't any different. If I've been coming in the house and they jump on me, that's like the pop machine, hit the button, and they're used to me petting them, all of a sudden I'm going to implement this new training. They may increase that behavior and jump more, and you have to know what to do with that. So that's why I want you to understand it's a cause and effect. It's marking the right behavior when they're finally doing it, but you're the trainer, so you're going to catch them in that moment, show them the right behavior, use the right word, mark it at the perfect time, and reward. So that's why we're first starting out with conditioning what this whole thing is. So when I say my dog's name, my goal eventually is that my dog will hear their name and come running. But in the beginning part of this exercise, I just have to condition the concept first, their name and reward. So that also means that I would never say their name and then correct them. Because what am I conditioning? Do any of you remember what it was like if you heard your whole name be yelled in another room as a parent said, get into this room right now? Would you come? I bet not. Normally we learned condition-wise, oh no, with that tone, the full name, I'm in big trouble. So dogs do too. That's why you don't want to get this mixed up. You want to always have yourself set up with all your training tools, your leash, everything, your command list, and know that all the humans are going to mirror each other. You understand the behaviors you no longer want and what you're going to replace them with. So if I don't want jumping, what do I want? 4 paws on the ground. If I don't want barking, what do I want? I want to be able to say quiet, and the dog quiets. So you have to have that already planned because you're the trainer and you're the pack leader. What happens with a lot of parents is they're like, my dog is so dumb, they just don't get it. When I was a kid, they got it. Those dogs all knew it. Somebody in the house probably spent a good amount of time, and sometimes we always get that one dog that's perfect, just perfect. So you're teaching your dog how to live in your home with your human pack. And how long do we give our kids that? How long do we give kids to learn a word paired to something like pot or pan, or, I mean pot like a pan, or, a fork, a spoon? We keep pairing it and showing them and pairing it and showing them for a long time. How long do we give our dogs? Must, if they're lucky, get a day, and they're expected to know. At end with different people saying different things. So you've got to recognize this is your foundation. If you haven't established this, don't move forward into expecting the dog to understand. So we're going to set up with our training list, our command list, behaviors that we want, behaviors that we're going to recondition. Training should start immediately. There is no when, the dog hits a year old, because now I want you to look at your dog's development line. So while I'm planning on training, I have to plan on the things this dog may need to become a really well-balanced social dog. That means that there's ages like there are for humans. There's perfect windows. So from a baby to 6 months is your perfect socialization time. But most of us missed it because they get told, don't take your dog anywhere. We want to keep it healthy. But you can control and stage socialization that is safe and do it right away. Because I'll hear all the time, my dog doesn't like other dogs. That's impossible, right? They're a dog. It's that they didn't get socialized with small dog, big dogs, all kinds of dogs. Remember how as kids you learned socialization with other children. You learned boundaries by what other kids would allow or not allow, or parents. I mean, have you ever had that human that just comes like right up to your face and you're backing up trying to tell them, please get out of my space, and they still follow you? That's what I'm talking about, boundaries. They actually get taught even that in their pack. Like, don't jump on the elder. Don't bully the elder. So that part will be your job for the dog to learn, because we took them out of their environment. The window of socializing is a big one for me, because I get parents all the time that have all kinds of socialization or anxiety issues. And both of those, whether it's socialization or stress, anxiety issues, have come usually from no one putting this into and implementing it into the dog's life. So that's what's going to be really important with that. If you look at after 6 months old, there's a window that starts to change, and we call it the fear impact time. So that's just like a toddler where they're like really cool with everybody, and then all of a sudden they've got their arms wrapped around the parent and they don't want to see anybody. There's a window that happens as a child develops, just like a dog. And so up until 12 months old, you've got a lot of socializing time and work, and it has to happen consistently with positive interactions all the time. So I don't recommend just going to a dog park, of course not. You don't know what kind of dogs and people and what they'll come in contact with in the beginning. But what you do want to do is find other friends with puppies or other friends that you know have social dogs. And we will work on that through this class. So that's going to be really important. So look at the development time frame in the book. It goes from baby all the way up to adult. Now, I need you to know your breed again. And we're going to go back into breed here, because certain dogs become adults at a different rate than others. So, we use labs all the time for the special needs, but that's because they become adults at a year almost. So we can get away with training them earlier and getting them in the homes. But with a shepherd, they don't become adult until almost 3. So there's a difference in how we train, but the foundation never changes, meaning all the people need to learn in the family, in the pack, the human behaviors and the commands, still all the same rules apply. Gotta stay consistent. All right, so from there, we're gonna look into how you set up your house rules, and that's really important, and we're getting to the end of what your homework will be here. But if I have no boundaries and I let the dog all over the furniture, all over the bed, and then I end up having a young child come stay or a family member come stay, and I don't want the dog on the furniture while they're here, well, that's confusing. So what I usually recommend is you start out with your house rules. Have a place that belongs to the dog, but not everywhere. Don't ever allow a dog on a piece of furniture or the bed without inviting them up and making sure that you've asked them up and then you tell them off. If I have any dog that shows behavior issues such as aggression or dominance, as a dominance trying to be a leader, then I'm not gonna put them on top of my furniture in my bed, because what I'm telling them is they are the leader and I'm not. So that could turn into an aggression problem, because they're just gonna do what dogs do best. They're gonna make sure they keep that position that you're giving them. Because if they're in your family, all the humans should be the top pack, the elders. And that's not by dominance, that's an old school term. It's by how you keep the structure set up in the home and how consistent you are at the 3 C's of dog training that I will say over and over. Training calmly and clearly and consistent is the most important part. Not changing your behaviors and rules, and that's the hardest part for the human. We are not a consistent. Our dogs actually will be much happier with us staying on a consistent of rules, and they'll get closer to you if you do that with them. A lot of times I'll hear parents think, well, I want my dog, it's my fun. It's the only time I feel like I can be me. And I'm like, that's great. You can still do that. Let's say if I have, a dog I want to give me hugs. But you put the command into hugs. You're leading that. They never get to just randomly jump up on you. But if I have grandpa who doesn't care and he wants to be jumped on anytime, the rule that applies there is you can't get after the dog ever. So if one day you don't want the dog jumping on grandpa, but grandpa and the dog have designed that relationship and grandpa said it was okay, then you can only have grandpa learn to now begin to change his behavior and interaction. So the first thing in body language that I will teach you today is what we call the body shutdown. So if I don't like something that a dog is doing, and in a dog pack, the same body language occurs. If a dog gets in their space too hard, if they're playing too hard, puppies do this at 8 weeks old with one another, and they've already yelped and they've already tried to show, I don't like how you're playing with me, or if I've already said, I don't like that, my body needs to shut down, paired with the human word, such as which is my marker word, paired with the timing being perfect. So the dog starts to jump up on me. I would actually turn my head, and the eye contact has to turn away. If you keep eye contact, then you keep engaging in that behavior. You have to shut down all body, shoulder, head, and pair that with the human word, and then know what behavior you want and replace. 4 paws on the ground. Then you use your marker word, good, and they get a pet, they get a treat, or something that makes them happy. Now, how many times will you have to repeat that? Again, I talked about the tolerance of different personality types. So it could be, I have a dog that has a high personality type. It's a lab. It's been taught to go out and be in all kinds of weather, take all kinds of things. Then I know I may have to repeat that over and over for weeks. But I may have another personality that I can barely raise my voice. If I say, I have to say it in a quiet tone and just a subtle movement. That's okay. That's just a different type of personality, a dog that's more sensitive. So you match what their needs are. And it may still require weeks and weeks of consistent training. And remember, a human being takes 90 days every day of repeating the same behavior before it becomes a consistent behavior. And if in any of that time they start not repeating it every single day, but they change it out, that behavior will not become a consistent behavior. Well, dogs are no different. So you have to give them at least 30 to 60 days of repeating what you're trying to teach that dog, whether it's to not jump, whether it's to greet people kindly, whether it's food exercises. So that's really important, along with how you've allowed your dog to live in your sleeping quarters, your family room. And again, I usually recommend give them their own bed, give them their own spot, give them a blanket. I'll have exercise training sessions on that. But you first want to set up your environment, like I was saying. And the next thing that I think that will be really important before we go to week 2 is that you've already, at least each day for 20 minutes, you can break the 20 minutes up throughout the day, have the dog on the leash, have your treats ready, have your command list, and I'm just reviewing everything here. Know what behavior you want to train that's new, or a behavior that's going to replace an unwanted behavior, and you will stage your environment up. I want you to already know how you're going to do this. So let's give the example as jumping. I have friends that are going to come on over. I'm going to teach them the body shutdown. No eye contact, turn your body language, shoulders away. Don't interact with the dog for the first 5 minutes until they acclimate at the person walking through the door. Now the parent human needs to have their dog staged on leash, treats ready, the whole plan. The other visitors, the actors, are going to already know what they cannot do, which is if they come in, they don't give eye contact. So we're setting this whole training session up for success, not failure. Now, of course, my dog's going to react like it normally. It sees the person, it's going to want to jump, especially if you gave it a reward before by petting. So you have to be ready to actually repeat this and repeat this. Okay, so that's your homework just for this week. It was the name response. It was all of your equipment. It's looking at your dog food and understanding the timing and the actual making sure that you do the marker words and the interruption words. Okay, and interruption words, again, you'll see in the notes, that is what we do when we're interrupting a bad behavior. So we've already talked about marker words such as good. Okay, so interruption words could be no paired with something that's going to interrupt it. Like I said earlier about the throw can, but you actually throw it in the area and pick the can right back up. A squirt gun is an interruption tool. A clap of the hand is an interruption tool. Dropping something that will just create loud, a throw chain is an interruption. You're just interrupting that behavior so that you can really quick teach them the correct behavior. And again, if it's not staged up and you're doing this randomly, that can turn into chaos. That's not your goal here. You want to make this so that you're communicating to your dog in a language they understand quickly and that you can have a success. Once a dog is doing something 90% of the time, we can begin to think, okay, now they're getting it. They kind of understand this. So be good humans. I will see you in the next class, and I recommend following these in a form that you do this when you don't jump to the next class if you haven't done this homework. That's really important. And I recommend getting with me. Like I said, go to dogtraininganytime.com, go down to the blog, put your email in. I will then send you the book for free. The links will be at the bottom of this. And then don't forget to like me and click on for notifications. And again, be a good human.